Hello everyone and welcome to another video in this channel. My name is Abraham Leal and today I'm going to be showing you something very cool. I know there's a lot of you out there that want to learn Zbrush and I decided to create this super express video. It's 40 minutes. I'm going to try to teach you Zbrush in 40 minutes with a very cool example. It's a little demon character that we're going to be doing now that Diablo 4 is coming. So yeah, in this video we're going to go over the interface. We're going to go over the main brushes, the main principles about sculpting, and hopefully you're going to be able to complete this little project and create your own little creature. Now, before we do this though, I just want to remind you that we have a special sale going on right now, which is this one. No, this one. No. Oh my God, where is it? Well, this is the character that we're going to be doing, but it's this one right here. We have the spring break going on, and this is it. Hello everyone, and welcome to this special announcement. The spring break is almost here, and we want to celebrate by offering an amazing discount for all of our courses. All of them. From March 20 to March 24, you guys will be able to get all of our courses, any of them, with a very special discount. For the next few days, we're offering a massive 90% discount on all of our courses on Udemy. Whether you're a beginner just starting your 3D journey or an advanced student looking to take your skills to the next level, we have the perfect course for you. Do you want to learn Maya? We have it. Do you want to learn Zbrush? Here we go. Do you want to learn Substance Painter, 3D Code, Houdini, Blender? We got them all. We have over 60 courses available for you right now. All courses include the files, the resources, and we have a dedicated Q&A to answer all of your questions. So, what are you waiting for? Head over to Udemy now and take advantage of this amazing offer. Don't miss your chance to start your 3D journey and become a great artist in no time. So that's it, guys. This is if this is your first time on the channel because you want to learn Zbrush, this is the perfect video. Let's get to it. You're gonna learn Zbrush in 4 minutes, and if you like it, I'm sure you're gonna be getting one of our courses down here. We have the complete guide to Zbrush, which is an amazing course to teach you all of the necessary tools. If you're new as well, just make sure to like, share, and subscribe because you are gonna get notified when we get new videos here in the channel. Anyways, enough commercials. Let's go with the content. Very well, guys, so let's start learning about Zbrush. If you download the trial version of Zbrush and you open the application, you're going to find something very similar to this thing right here. And it's very confusing. Actually, Zbrush does not have the best UI in the whole industry. Like, it's one of the worst UIs. But once you understand it and get to know it, it gets a little bit better. So unfortunately, when you start drawing here, if you start clicking around, you're going to get all of this crazy looking things. And we're nowhere near close to what we want to do, which is a character or a creature or whatever. So we need to understand what these things are. First of all, we have all of these menus up here. We have all of the shortcuts for the main tools that we're going to be using up here. We have the tools that we're going to be using, such as the brushes, the alphas, the strokes, the colors over here. And then over here, we're going to have the menus for all of these specific things. Right now, you can see that we have the tool menu, but at any point, I can just anchor this thing back into this side and I can get any menu to be on this part of the screen. Zbrush is meant to be used with a tablet, so either a Huion, a Wacom, or however you say it, XP Pen, like any tablet. I'm personally using a Huion pen display, but you are strongly encouraged to use one because otherwise you're not going to be able to get the most out of the software. This thing right here that we're seeing is called the canvas, and it's like our viewport, the place where we're going to be working, but they call it the canvas. And what I need to do now is actually need to clean the canvas. Very common shortcut that we're going to be using, Control-N. Okay, Control-N will clean up the canvas and we're going to be ready to jump and to start working. I'm going to go to the lightbox here. The lightbox is the navigator that we have for Zbrush, very similar to what the Adobe had with Bridge, where you can actually take a look at what's inside each of the subtools. And as you can see, we have a lot of different projects right now. We're in the project tab and we have all of these projects that we can use as our starting point. I'm going to use this Dynasphere 128, Dynamesh Sphere, because we're going to be using a very particular tool here inside of Zbrush. Now, navigation in Zbrush is tricky, okay? It gets a little bit tricky. I'm gonna go over it real quick so that you guys can feel comfortable with the software, but it definitely gets a little bit tricky. If it's the first time you're using Zbrush, then it's definitely gonna take a little while to get used to it. First of all, with your pen, if you click outside of your object, well, you can see that I'm moving the cursor right there. If I click outside of the object, I'm gonna rotate around, okay? You can see this little head right here is displaying what the current view is. So that's the front view. That's the side view. You can actually click on the little head and rotate it around and it's gonna get you to that specific orthographic view. So if you get lost, this is a good way to do it. But that's the first one. Just click outside of the object and drag around to rotate around your object. If you click inside the object, you can start manipulating the little thing. So let's do a couple of eyes and a little smile right there. And you can see how when we rotate, we're gonna be losing we're gonna be changing the angle. Now, I personally don't like to work with dynamic perspective turned on. This is a fake perspective that we get here inside of Zbrush to try to see the object in a better like perspective. But in this case, I think it actually hurts us, so I'm gonna turn it off. The next shortcut that I'm gonna show you is to move the zoom in and out. So if I press Alt and I click outside of the object, I'm gonna be able to move the camera from left to right, from top to bottom. And if then I drop the Alt, you can see I'm pressing Alt right now. If I drop the Alt, I can push my pen up or down or left and right. I'm gonna be able to zoom. That's how you get access to all of the normal movements that you get on a different software. So click outside of the object to move it around, Alt and click to pan the camera left to right, top to bottom. And then if you press Alt, click, and you drop the Alt, I'm not pressing Alt anymore, you can move your pen up and down and you're gonna get your zoom. It gets a little bit, again, it takes a little while to get used to it. So I recommend taking a couple of minutes, 5-10 minutes, just playing around with your camera and trying to navigate. If you get lost, if by any chance like you can't find your object anymore, don't worry. Press F on your keyboard and that's gonna frame whatever is on the viewport. In this case, this little sphere right here. Also, if it's getting a little bit difficult for you guys to move around, you also have the same options right here. Move, zoom, and rotate. We can zoom, and we can move around using these icons right here, and we can frame. So all of the elements are going to be here at the right of your element as well. Very handy tool. When you're moving your camera, if you want to snap to a particular view, let's say front view, top view, side view, bottom view, you can start dragging your camera, and then if you press Shift, you're going to snap to this. You drop the pen, and then you drop Shift. Make sure to drop the pen first and then Shift, because otherwise it's just gonna jump back. So if I do Shift and I drop Shift, I'm gonna lose the camera. So you snap, you drop your pen, and then you drop Shift, and that way you're on your front view and nothing's moving anymore. Okay. So all of the shortcuts: Alt, click to move around, Alt, click, drop Alt to zoom in, and just like pan around are the things that you're gonna use. I know some people like to customize their like stylus buttons here on your on the pen to have like Alt on the button here, and it makes it a little bit easier. I've been using keyboard all my life, so that's why it gets a little bit easier for me. But you can of course personalize your experience as you see fit. Now, talking about what we do here inside of Zbrush, Control C of course is going to erase things, and now we're going to talk about what happens if we touch the sphere here. Well, as you can see, we have this red circle, which is our brush, and if I were to press and drag around, I'm going to be adding volume. Okay. So I'm using my standard brush right now, which is this one right here. And if I drag and draw, I'm going to be able to create some interesting shapes on my sphere. So these shapes are really important because, or actually the brush is really important because depending on how big the brush is and how the focal shift and draw size changes, we're going to be able to obtain different results. So these are the main things that are going to control our brush: the intensity, the focal shift, and the draw size. Intensity, of course, as the name implies, is how intense the brush is going to be. If I want a very intense effect, well, I can increase the intensity. If I want a very soft effect, I bring the intensity down. The cool thing about Zbrush is that it detects your pressure sensitivity. So if you press your tablet really hard, you're going to be able to create a lot of volume. If you press your tablet really softly, you're going to get very thin volumes, okay? So this is why using a tablet is so important, because it's going to allow us to have more control over the volumes that we create here in our 3D shapes. Focal shift is like the softness or hardness of the brush. If you are coming from Photoshop where you know how to draw and paint, it works in a very similar way. If we bring the focal shift down, the brush is going to be really hard and you can see the borders of the brush. And if we bring the focal shift really high, it's going to be very soft and we're going to have a very nice and soft gradient there. I usually don't mess that much with this one, but it's a good option to have. And finally, draw size, of course. Well, the bigger the brush, the bigger the change in the form, the smaller the brush, the smaller the change in the form. We can again change it right around here. Those are the main or most important things about the standard brush. Now, the standard brush has a couple of little things that modify how it looks. First of all, over here we can find all of the different brushes. Don't worry, we're not going to go over all of them. And you actually don't need all of them. Some of them are very specific for very specific tasks or projects. So when you're working on a character, you're probably going to use like 10 or 12 at most. It's not that you're going to be using every single one of them. It's good to know all of them, but you're not going to be using them all. A stroke is the way that this brush is being applied to the surface. Right now, as you can see, it's done with this dots fashion. So when I start drawing, it's a lot of dots, one after the other, that get this specific detail. If I change, for instance, to color spray, then when I do this, instead of having a clean line, I'm going to have a lot of little dots like just appearing all along my surface, which could give some interesting textures. We have other ones like drag dot, where I drop a dot and then I decide where to drop it. We have drag erect, where you can draw a dot and make it bigger or smaller. So again, different ways in which we change the behavior of the brush. I'm gonna go back to dots, which is like the traditional one. And then we can talk about alphas. Alphas are ways in which we can change the tip of the brush. So right now we have no alpha, so it's just a round tip. But if I grab this star, for instance, and I start drawing, you can see that it looks a little bit weird, right? Even if I make it a little bit bigger, you can see now that my brush is creating this sort of like star trail, and it gives, again, a different texture. Alphas work really well with other types of strokes, like the drag rect, because I'm able to draw specific stars in specific points of the surface, and it allows me, again, to have a little bit more control. So now we know that we can change the brush, we can change the behavior of the brush, and we can change the alpha of the brush. These are the three main things. We can also use textures. I don't use textures that much, but technically we could paint with texture if we turn on RGB. Oh. Let's go there. There we go. So technically we can paint inside of ZBrush. There are some techniques, and I actually go over some of those in the full course. But texturing is something that we usually do in other softwares, especially if we're working for production. Finally, we got this thing right here, which are the matte caps, which are materials that we can change to, well, see our object in a different light, in a different material. This is really good if you're doing, for instance, like jewelry or specific types of like pre-visualization things. You can get a really good idea of how things are going to look on the real world by using this material captures up here. And if you're more of a traditional user, then down here we have like basic materials like your Lamberts, your Blaines, and your Fonks, so that you can get just a nice surface. We can, of course, change the color on the object. So if we're doing like a goblin, we can go for like a green clay. If we're doing like a demon or something, we can go with a red. And again, you're free to change how you want your material to look. And that's pretty much it for the tools over here. Now, when we're drawing, go back here. There we go. When we're drawing, as you can see, I'm adding volume. I like to press a spacebar. Spacebar is a great shortcut to get all of the tools that you see up here and up to the side right where your mouse is. So if my mouse is here and I press a spacebar, I'm going to get the object right here. And if my mouse is down here, I'm going to get it over here. So this is a very, very fast and easy way to access the size, the focal shift, the intensity, and all of the different things, okay? So you're gonna see me using that one quite a bit, where I just press a spacebar, get this menu out, and then we just start like drawing things. Now, if we go to option here, we have this called C-add and C-sub. This is the behavior of the brush. So the standard brush, by standard, it just adds volume. But if I change this to C-sub, it's gonna remove volume, as you can see right there. Instead of adding volume, it's actually removing it. A very important thing here, we're actually not adding more geometry or removing geometry, we're just pushing the volumes. We're going to talk about adding or removing geometry a little bit later, but right now we're just pushing the points around. This sphere right here is made out of a ton of different squares. This is called a Dynamesh sphere. And when we use our brush, what we're doing is we're pushing those points, those vertices up and down to generate the kind of volume that we're looking for. Now, it's very time consuming to go up here and change from C-add to C-sub every time we need to change that. So a quick shortcut to do that is just to press Alt. When you press the Alt icon, you're going to do the inverse of what it is set up to do. So if it's at C-add, which is adding, of course, and I press Alt, I'm going to be removing elements. And that way, I'm going to be carving into the object. And that's it. That's pretty much all of the basic things that you need to know to get to understand the interface and how all of the brushes work. Now we're going to make a jump and we're going to start talking about sculpture. Okay, we're going to sculpt something. And since Diablo 4 is part of the, of the talk right now, Diablo 4 is coming soon. At the time of this recording, there's going to be an open beta on the weekend. Let's do something a little bit creepy, like a demon, like a faceless demon or something like that. So when you start working on a sculpture, the first thing that you need to look for is the form. Form is the basics or the basis of everything that we do. If you don't have good form, then it doesn't matter how many details and stuff you add to your object, you're not going to be able to get something that looks as nice. So I'm going to press spacebar. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. And I actually want to change the brush because I want to shape the sphere to look more like a head, a neck, and a little bit of a shoulder. And to do that, I'm going to change to a brush that's called the move brush. So if I go here to the brush, you're going to see we have a lot of different brushes, but up here should be the move brush. If you can't find it, you can press the letter M and it's going to get you all of the brushes that have the M name, and the move brush should be right there. As you can see, the move brush right here has a V on orange. That's the shortcut. So if you want to learn the shortcuts, if you're a shortcut guy and you want to learn all of them, you can just press a B as in brush, M for move, and then V, and you're going to get to the move brush real quick. The move brush works a little bit different than the standard brush. Instead of adding or removing volume, it just moves the whole thing up and down or to the left or to the right. So if I click and drag, you're gonna see I'm actually like stretching our sphere and creating something a little bit more interesting. So I'm gonna go to the bottom part here, and I'm gonna stretch this down a little bit to create this sort of like alien looking shape. Not too much, probably something like that. I'm gonna rotate my camera, and I'm gonna push this forward a little bit because the faces tend to go forward. So I'm gonna start pushing from the side to generate this sort of shape right there. There we go. Then faces, as you can see, they're not round on the sides. They're usually a little bit flatter. So I'm gonna go to the side here, move my camera, and from the side, I'm gonna start pushing this to create this sort of like blocky shape right there. There we go. Not bad. So we got a very basic head shape. But now we wanna get the neck. How can we get the neck in an easy way? Well, we could make the brush smaller and start like pushing around and trying to move it, but as you can see, it gets a little bit tricky and it starts distorting things in a really bad way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use one technique that we have here inside of Zbrush, which is masking. Masks are really, really important when we're working with sculpture. And to mask anything inside of Zbrush, you're gonna press Control. So I'm gonna press Control and I'm gonna draw a little circle right there. What that does is if I had the standard brush, which by the way, the shortcut is B for brush, S, T, and I try to draw, it's not gonna draw on top of the mask. So that's a very good way, well, to mask a specific area. Now, if I want to invert the mask, I wanna swap it. I want this area to be active and everything else to be hidden. How can I do that? Very simple. Control again, you can see the cursor turns yellow, and then I'm just gonna click and I'm gonna get this thing right there. And then what I'm gonna do here is either with Move Brush, BMV, I think Move Brush is easier since we're just exploring basic shapes. So with the Move Brush, making it really big, I'm just gonna drag this down to create the neck. And there we go. So now we have a neck. The problem with this neck is if we take a look at the polygons, this is called the polyframe that allows us to see how the polygons are like working. You're gonna see that these guys are really, really, really stretched. So if I wanted to sculpt something here, it's gonna be a little bit difficult because we don't have enough resolution. We don't have enough polygons. Thankfully, we are working with this mode, which is called the Dynamesh mode, that allows us to recalculate how the topology is distributed so that we can get clean topology to sculpt with. Easiest way to do that, just hit Control, right click and drag a mask. As you can see, we create a mask outside of the object. Do not touch the object, outside of the object like this. That's the shortcut to recalculate Dynamesh. And as you can see, all of these polygons that are really stretched right here are gonna get recalculated, rebalanced. We get more geometry and it's cleaner geometry that we can use to continue sculpting, okay? Not bad, right? So the not easy way to do it would be to go to the geometry tab over here, which is where the Dynamesh function lives. And here inside of Dynamesh, you can see that Dynamesh right now is active. You can deactivate it and then reactivate it, and that will recalculate. But in order to save those clicks, you just Control and drag outside of the object, making sure that this thing is active, and you're gonna get this recalculation right there. Now, I'm gonna grab my Move Brush again, and I'm gonna push, I'm gonna drag to create the chest of my character. So I'm just gonna create like a nice little stretchy effect right there. Let's move to the side, for like 3/4, and I'm gonna start creating, again, sort of like a bust. Something like that. Let's add a little bit more volume. As you can see, I'm only using the Move Brush, and with the Move Brush, I'm trying to control as much as possible the volumes and the shapes of my character. A very common mistake is people try to sculpt the super heavy like topology and stuff from the very beginning. And that's not something that you want to do. You want to make sure that you have a clean shape before you start doing anything else. I'm just changing the size of my brush right here, and I'm creating some very basic shapes for my character. I can even like make the jawline a little bit sharper right there. And there we go. Okay, not bad, right? Now let's recalculate again so that all of the topology gets clean. But you can see it still looks a little bit like lumpy. It doesn't look as nice. Here's where the third shortcut comes into play, which is Shift. If you press Shift, you're gonna see that our brush turns blue. We have the red one, which is the edit. We have the yellow one, which is the mask. And then Shift, it's the blue one, which is the smooth brush. With this one, we're gonna be able to clean all of these things right here and remove any imperfections that we have on our character to have a really, really, really clean resolution. And that's it. We got a really nice like bust here that we can start using to create something that looks really, really interesting. So I'm going to show you one brush here. I'm going to use the B for brush, C for clay, and then a B for buildup. This is one of my favorite brushes. It works very similar to the standard brush, but you're gonna see it has this very strong square alpha. I like it because it allows me to create a shape very, very fast. So for instance, if I wanna make the zygomatic bone a little bit more intense, I'm gonna press Alt and I'm gonna start carving in. We're gonna do a very conceptual piece. We're not gonna do a very polished piece because this is just your first sculpture here inside of Zbrush. But I'm just gonna start, as you can see, doing this strokes to create this sort of like remove elements from there. And then here's where I would expect the zygomatic to be. I'm gonna add a little bit of volume. I'm gonna make my brush a little bit smaller. I'm gonna create this crazy lines going in. As I mentioned, this is gonna be like a faceless demon. So I'm actually not gonna have eyes or anything. I want everything to be very, very, very creepy. Let's go here to the front view and let's add another sort of like hole or something. So I'm gonna start carving in again with my clay buildup and just creating some crazy lines going in. Now you can see the silhouette's a little bit simple. So let's go back to V and V to my move brush. And I'm gonna like make the silhouette a little bit more interesting, a little bit more pointy. So something like this. There we go. I'm gonna go to my clay buildup again. And now I wanna remove a little bit of space from here. Okay, so I'm gonna make very soft, like nice lines. And I'm gonna start creating this sort of like very abstract looking shapes. Going back. I want this to be, again, kind of like, have you guys seen like Venom and Carnage and stuff? Like a symbiote, like just random organic shapes creating the face. And now that I have something that looks interesting, I can start using my smooth brush, remember Shift again, to clean some of the shapes and remove some of the brush strokes that I was adding. There we go. Usually we have a muscle called the sternocleidomastoideus, which goes from the back of the jaw to the clavicle. So I'm gonna add it right there. Yeah, just a line going very, very softly. I'm doing this very softly. The clay buildup tends to be really hard, a really hard brush, really aggressive. So I tend to be really, really, really soft when I'm working with this. Here, I would expect to have the clavicle. So I'm gonna add a little bit of a point there. And I'm gonna create a sort of an S-shaped thing. And we're gonna create this very cool looking character. Usually we got a little bit more of mass right there. And here, it's usually hollow. So I'm gonna use Alt again to remove a little bit of volume. I'm taking this very, very easily and hopefully very, very slow so that you guys can follow. For instance, here in the front, I'm gonna make my clay buildup a little bit bigger, and I'm gonna create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we smooth those out. As you can see, that's gonna look a little bit like latissimus dorsi. Sorry, pectoral muscles. Pectoral muscles. Those are the pectoral muscles. So we do a little bit more, a little bit of texture right there. And once we're ready, we just soften this up a little bit right there. There we go. Not bad. Not bad. Let's add, I think I'm gonna have the horns come from that part right there. But I actually want another set of horns coming from this area. So again, with clay buildup, I'm just using Alt and I'm cleaning all of this up. Let's add some more random lines. And I kind of want to push the zygomatic arcs that we have right here. And I kind of like this shape right here. It's kind of like some invisible eyes that we have on this area right here. So I'm going to carve in a little bit more. I'm not going to do the eyes, but I'm just going to like imply that there's some eyes there. And I'm going to use my move brush to push the zygomatic arc of this thing out a little bit. Now, we've been playing around with the silhouette for a little while now. So it might be a good idea to recalculate. So Control, drag outside of the character, and we can recalculate. I'm going to show you another brush, which is one of my favorite brushes, which is the Trim Dynamic brush. The shortcut is B, T, D. The Trim Dynamic is a way to flatten things and clean them up a little bit. It's like a little hammer that just hammers the surface and allows me to get some sharper effects right here. So for instance, I can just go over these areas right here. And you can as well. If you're following along, you can follow all of these steps. I'm just using very, very simple brushes to create something that looks really, really interesting. There we go. I'm going to go with my clay buildup again. Let's carve in the back part here. As you can see, I'm being very aggressive right now. And then with smooth, I'm just going to smooth this out. And with the clay buildup again, I'm going to rebuild a little bit of the muscle there in a way that makes it look a little bit more diabolical. Let's add a little bit of volume here for the trapezius muscle. And there we go. Let's kind of want to carve this out. Just smooth that out right there. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this exercise is, since we're doing something that's very conceptual, you're free to do whatever looks good. So if you feel like some of the strokes or the designs that I'm going for are a little bit weird, or you don't like them as much, feel free to change them around. Just use the same tools that I'm using. If this is your first time using Zbrush, change them around and find something that looks a little bit better for what you want. Now we need to talk about multiple subtools. We want to add horns, right? Like, horns are definitely one of the things that we want to have with our character. So how can we add a couple of horns to this guy? Well, this thing that we're working with right now is called a tool, okay? And actually, it might be a good idea to save it because we haven't saved just yet. So I'm going to create a new folder right here called the daemon. There we go. And this is saved as a C tool. Now, a tool is made out of multiple subtools, and you can see right here we have this subtool menu. Now, before I cover the subtools, I just want to show a couple of very common mistakes that you might find working the first time. The first one is you might press the letter B and it becomes really dark. What happens here is you change the colors over here. So if this happens, you can either just change back to white over here or press B again and you should be back. Another very common mistake is people hit the letter T by accident and they say switch. And you go back to drawing like a bunch of different things. Now it looks like a heavy metal cover or something. Just hit Control N to clean the canvas, draw one, and hit T. If for any reason you can't draw one, because sometimes like the drag rect gets like stuck and you can't draw one and you just draw like a bunch right here, change this to either drag rect or drag dot, whichever one is enabled, clean the canvas, draw one, and press T. And that's going to get you back to edit mode, so then you can continue working. Now, if we go here to subtool, I'm going to say append, and I'm going to append a sphere. This sphere is going to be the one that we're going to be using to create our horns. Now, if I click the sphere over here, I switch to the sphere, and I now have control over the tools in the way that I do when I was working on the character. And we can move it from here and start creating the horns, but in the 3D world, it's very important that we understand that we can move things around, scale things around, rotate things around. So this one, I'm going to press W, and we're going to bring this thing called a gizmo out. This gizmo will allow me to move things in a very control way. If I press a little square right there, it's going to allow me to scale them. And what I can do here is I can position this sphere right here on one of the horn things that I want to create right there. And now that I have this, I can use my move brush and just create the general shape of the horn that I want. So I'm going to start creating like a forward-facing horn, something like this. But maybe I want this horn to be rotated to the side. I don't want it to be straight. I want it to be rotated. So I again press E to go into rotation or into the gizmo this time around. And I can rotate this around and find a specific section that I like. Now you can see that this is a stretch, but if I do this, it's not actually working. Why is it not working? Because we have not enabled Dynamesh for this particular element. So we need to go to Geometry, Dynamesh, and I need to click Dynamesh right here. Now, if I'm moving a little bit too fast, don't worry. You can watch this video as many times as you want. And as I mentioned before, we do have the premium course, which goes over all of the different things. We have a lot of different exercises. People seem to like that one quite a bit. And you can check it down here. At the time of this recording, we do have a sale going on. So there we go. We got our horn right here. And that doesn't mean, the fact that it's Dynamesh, doesn't mean that I can still change it. So if I want to do some silhouette changes or whatever, this is the moment to do it. Now, the big question is, how can I get this? Let's say I want to duplicate this guy right here. Very easy. You press W, Control, Alt, and you drag. And this is going to create a second horn. And now if I rotate this and I position this on the other side, I'm going to be able to create, another interesting silhouette by reusing one of the assets that we have. I'm going to push it to the back so that it's facing backwards. But when we see it from the front, you can see that we get some really, really cool, kind of looks like a crown, right? And there we go. Now there's two things that I'm gonna do here, and I want you guys to follow very quickly. It's a little bit more complicated, the reason why you need to do this, but just follow along, and you're gonna be able to get the horns on the other side. So first, we go down here to polygroups, and we're just gonna hit other groups. This is to get one of them, something called a polygroup, and so that we don't get any errors when we do the next thing, which is a mirror. Okay. So we now are going to go to C plugin, and there's a plugin called Subtool Master, and there's a tool here called Mirror. I can hit mirror, merge into one subtool, x-axis, and I'm just gonna hit OK. This will just duplicate the other thing. Again, don't worry too much about this. It's just a way to quickly duplicate these guys around and get this very cool looking effect. Now that we have this, we can go back to our demon character right here. And if I go back to my clay buildup, when you try to sculpt close to this guys, you can see that the other tools, the extra tools, are gonna be acting as a sort of mask. So now if I try to sculpt around them, you can see how I'm hugging the surface and I'm creating something that looks really, really, really interesting. Now it definitely looks like the horns are coming from inside the head of the character. So working with multiple subtools is something that we're going to be doing quite a bit here inside of Zbrush because it allows us more flexibility and it creates some things that look really, really nice. So I'm going to smooth these things out now to soften the effect. And there we go. Smooth some of these elements right here as well. And that's it. We're getting something that looks really, really cool. But most of you have seen Zbrush and you're like, I want to go to the cool stuff. I want to be able to do wrinkles. I want to be able to do like details and all this stuff. How can I do that? Well, the more geometry we have, the more detail our object can have as well. So if I want to have a lot of geometry with this guy, I need to go to Geometry, Dynamesh, and increase the resolution. I'm going to go to something like 500. And you can see we're going to jump from 1,000 points, 100,000 points to 1.5 million, so a little bit more than 1.5 million. Now we have a lot of points, and this will allow us to create a lot of detail that will be impossible to do with very little points. So the way we're going to be doing this is with the final brush that I'm going to teach you this time around, which is the Damien standard. The shortcut is B for brush, D for Damien, S for standard. And the Damien standard is pretty much like a knife. So as you can see, we're going to be able to create a really crazy looking lines going from any place we want into any other place that we want. And here's where you can actually go crazy and start creating patterns and like inscriptions or things that you might need. For instance, if I really want to separate the horns from the head, I can do something like that. I kind of want to create like a couple of lines going here to the front. And I want these lines to mimic a mouth. So very softly, I can create this sort of like mouth. And maybe here, we can create some sort of like spirals. There we go. The eyes I actually want to keep them like really graphic. So I'm going to use my clay buildup and my smooth to just clean them up. I want to imply that there's eyes, but I don't want to see any eyes. There we go. But see how nice those like decorations look now on the character itself. I'm going to use my Damien standard. I'm going to give the muscles a little bit more definition here. So for instance, I'm going to start adding some lines on this side right here. On the pectoral muscle, I can carve in a little bit of like the fibers. It's going to give us a super, super creepy vibe. Then we can just add a little bit of detail here with the clay buildup and smooth it out. Like the fact that we're working with details doesn't mean that we can't change the form. For instance, I don't like this like thing right there, so I'm gonna press T and just trim dynamic to make it more like a marble sculpture, where like usually the shoulders and things are like chipped rock. So just trim dynamic, and I'm chipping all of this away. And as you can see, we create something that looks really, really, really interesting. Let's go to the head. I think we need to add something here to the head. So let's start adding some crazy lines to decorate this guy right here. I do want to separate the eye. Again, I don't want to describe the eye, but I do want to like separate the shapes of the eye with the Damien standard. And now, for instance, we can go to the clay buildup again and be like, hey, what if we added some like spot details, just like carving in and smoothing out? I mean, that could work. Like some indication of like a nose, for instance. Like that's the beauty of Zbrush. Like once you understand how all of these tools work, it's very easy to come up with ideas and play around with all of these different like variations on your characters and design your own stories. I always tell my students that it's very important that we decide and we tell a story with all of the things that we're doing. So what is the story with this, guys? Like I like this. Look at this. I'm using my clay buildup to generate like just membranes or tissue or something. So it now looks like that's like a fleshy area, and everything else looks a little bit more like armor or like a mask. I don't know. That looks like an interesting idea for this character. On the horns, if you want to, we can use again like clay buildup. I'm gonna press X here. I did forget to mention that if you lose symmetry by any reason, press X. X will turn on and off your symmetry. By default, it's turned on when you start a project, but if you lose it, you can just bring it back. And I'm gonna use my clay buildup to create like rings around the horns. It's gonna give the horns a little bit more texture. Now, this is just a quick sculpt, guys. We've been working on this for like 30 minutes now. I promised I was going to show you how to learn, or I was going to show you ZBrush in 40 minutes or less. So the idea with this is that you take all of these elements and all of these techniques that I'm sharing with you, and that you do your own stuff. Again, as I've mentioned before, if you wanna go, or if you wanna do more advanced stuff, we have the course available, the advanced course, where we go over a lot of different exercises, like 10 chapters, I think, where we go over a lot of the different tools that we have inside of ZBrush, so that you can learn all of the different tips and tricks that you can utilize to create whatever comes to your mind. So yeah, that's it, guys. I'm gonna throw this into the render. I'm not showing render right now because it will be a little bit too much information, I think. But hopefully with this, you guys get an idea of how the sculpting world works. Hopefully you tried it out. You can download the trial for ZBrush, and you don't need to pay any single amount of money for the trial, and just have fun. Try using this little tutorial here to get you going inside of ZBrush, and when you're ready to jump into the next level, well, we have the courses you need here at Nextut. That's it, guys. Let's go. And that's it, guys. This is the final result. I did add a little bit like texture and stuff here instead of Photoshop. A little bit tacky, but it's fine. This is a very quick sculpt. I like to do one of this every now and then just to warm up and get ready to do anything that I need to do for my work. And hopefully after watching this 40 minutes of ZBrush, you guys are now more comfortable with the tool, and you're wanting to create even more awesome stuff. So again, if you want to check it out, we have the spring break going on at the time of this recording. It's until March 24, but make sure to dig around the channel. You might find the promo code if you're watching this later down the line. Remember that we have live streams. I'm going to be seeing you guys tomorrow, Thursday, so make sure to tune in. Make sure to, again, hit the little subscribe button, the little notification bell, and I'm going to be really, really happy to see you guys on the live stream when we continue with more of our props. Thank you very much. Have a great one, and good luck sculpting. Bye-bye.